All right, we'll get started. Welcome everyone to the panel where we're going to talk about all-consuming video all the time, as it says in our program. We can discuss whether we really are now in an age of all video all the time. I want to let the panelists introduce themselves. This is really, to me, a very exciting panel, and we already started the panel about 15 minutes ago, actually, up here. So you guys are jumping in mid-conversation. But what I love about the makeup of this panel is that we've got representatives from 3 of the media majors. Well, actually, I should say 2 and hopefully 3. Bernie Gershon hopefully will be here momentarily. As well as from a couple of really exciting companies that are leading edge in terms of the new technologies to support digital video distribution, as well as Neil from the money side. So hopefully we have a number of different angles on this transformation we're all experiencing. So let me introduce myself. My name is Howard Tiersky. I'm with Capgemini. Capgemini is one of the world's leading systems integrators and consulting companies. We are a global firm, about 75,000 people around the world. And our media and entertainment practice focuses on helping the large media companies and MSOs and other players to do many things, but including in that is certainly adapt to this changing media landscape that we're all in. We do strategy consulting, we do technology implementation of all sorts, and outsourcing as well. And do work for pretty much most of the large media companies that are represented here, the Time Warners, the Disneys, the News Corps, and others of the world. And I want to give my colleagues an opportunity to introduce themselves, and would love for each of you to give us a little bit about who you are, what your company's role is in the world, and some of your companies are obviously far more well-known than others. And as well, what do you think your company is doing, or your brand is doing differently? Les talked a little bit about in the previous session, which I assume just about everyone was at, some of the different strategies that some of the different media companies are taking in the market. Be interested in you kind of characterizing what is your company doing that you think is thinking in any different way from what the rest of the herd is doing. And we can just kind of go down the row.
Hi everyone, I'm Henrik Werdelin. I'm the Chief Creative Officer for Juiced. I think Juiced, if you don't know, is probably best known because we have content distribution deals with about 300 of the finest content providers in the world. We also, I guess, known because that our company was founded by Jonas and Niklas, who previously did Skype. And I think what makes us unique is that we were one of the only content platforms that really, from the offset, was looking at this space as being something that we needed to make a product for content owners, for advertisers, and for users at the same time. I think a lot of other players out there have been very good at doing something for the users, but then the content owners weren't too happy and stuff like that. So, really, if you look at it, for the content owners, we deliver a platform where they risk-free can distribute a high-quality video to a very large amount of people via a peer-to-peer system. And there's really a business model built into that from the offset. So, where other people are saying, let's just get a lot of users and then think about the money afterwards, we really from day one thought, hey, we need to be able to send checks to the content owners. For the advertisers, we believe in measurability and targetability. So, we will be able to sell to an advertiser a 18-year-old kid from Brooklyn watching sports and music. And for the users, we really give them a free service where they, with much less advertising that they see on TV, can see high-quality video that they enjoy and increasingly can interact around this with social tools. So I think, what's unique for us is this notion of looking at it as a complete end-to-end business from all the 3 major groups in the equation.
Henrik, can you just give us a sense of the penetration right now, how many uniques, and who some of the key advertisers and some of the key content providers are on Juiced?
Yeah, we have so many that are, instead of just mentioning a couple, so at least somebody out, we have about, I think we have 5 million downloads right now. We've been out for about 6 months, so we're very proud with that. We do have about 300 content providers, ranging from,
But who are some of your most important?
I think the best one is Viacom, MTV, Go. No, definitely, we're very proud to work with, for example, MTV and the Viacom portfolio of companies. We're very proud of doing a test where we're going to stream live March Madness here in a couple of weeks, so with CBS. On the content side, we have everybody, from Coke to the American military. So. And the users, we've done a very big Megan survey, and they're very happy with our service, and we have nice growth and a very strong portfolio for 2008 that we think is going to really set us apart.
Great.
And I'm Greg Clement. I run digital distribution for MTV Networks and the mobile group in an organization as well, and we syndicate content widely to any number of different sites, including AOL and Juiced and Bebo, and others. You asked, you mentioned Les, and when he was talking about the sort of spectrum of the way that different media companies interact. And on one side of the spectrum, in his talk today, he talked about CBS, and how they're, giving their content out far and wide to anyone who wants it. And then on the other side, he pointed to Disney and ABC, who have sort of a walled garden around it, although they do, I believe, have their content on AOL.
We have their content.
But you're amongst the only ones, which is a coup. So our strategy thus far has been to sort of find a place in the middle of that spectrum. We've, just at CES a few months ago, announced deals with, everyone from MSN and AOL and Juiced and Bebo and Dailymotion, a couple of them. But we've really been focusing on sites that we see a lot of traction in, sites that obviously respect IP and copyright, and that we are able to work with. And our goal has been to work together with these companies to help grow their business, help grow our business, and create that ecosystem of video content online. And a big part of that as well is, we think, viral distribution. So all of the various clips and all of the bits of long form that you find on our sites and on our partner sites, users can take, they can put wherever they want, they can put on their own sites, they can put on their blogs. And obviously the advertising follows that along, and we manage and sell all of that advertising. That's the business that we're in the midst of building.
Fred McIntyre. I'm responsible for a variety of products, but I think most relevant for everything we're talking about today would be AOL Video. The approach that AOL has taken with video is, I think, fundamentally differentiated from the approach that others are taking in the market, because we really see video search as the most important part of the value chain from where we're positioned. And we see that because we reach a fairly large audience today. Video player platform reaches about 25 million uniques a month. The video portal that we operate on the AOL network reaches between 10 and 12 million uniques a month. And Truvio.com, which is the video search technology company that we acquired in the beginning of 2006, syndicates their search technology across a network of about 40 million uniques a month. We see video search as being critically important, first and foremost, because we think that solves the most important and the most significant problem that users have with video today, and we think that's a problem that is going to be a bigger and bigger problem over the coming years. Specifically, users are frustrated with the work that they have to do to find video. In the beginning of 2006, when we acquired Truvio, there were about 2 million videos in their index on the internet. Last week, that number was about 150 million. By the end of this year, that number will be well over 300 million. And by the end of 2009, we'll be well over 1 billion videos in that index. The rate at which video is coming online, both as Greg will talk about with Viacom, as Bernie will talk about with ABC, the rate at which videos are coming online from the high end of the market, as it were, is accelerating. And then in addition to that, you have this huge upswell of video coming online globally, video coming online from users and other sources, as well as from new content producers. As an example, Next New Networks, a company we announced a deal with yesterday. So you look at this explosion, this deluge of video as it comes online, and it is overwhelming for users. And if you ask users what they get frustrated about when with online video, what they will tell you first and foremost is they get frustrated with the advertising. The next 4 or 5 things that they'll talk about will be along the lines of, I can't find what I'm looking for, I have to wade through all this stuff, I don't know what site to go to find the video I'm looking for, I watched that video yesterday and now I can't find it anymore. These are all problems that can be addressed if you have a comprehensive index of all the video on the web, if you have the best metadata about that video, and if you do the best job of identifying what video is relevant to a user in a specific situation. These are the things that video search does. And this is really the foundation of our strategy and our approach. Everything we do starts with that, whether it's in the US or outside of the US. Building on that with the AOL Video Portal experience that we have in the US, we are able to leverage the power of this technology, the growth in the audience that we have, to make relationships with people like Viacom, with people like ABC, people like Hulu, the NBC-Fox joint venture, people like CBS, and to use our audience as essentially as a distribution partner in those relationships. The last piece of the puzzle for us is we're very focused on building a network sales force approach as part of what we do through Ad.com and Platform A, and through a company we acquired called Lightningcast in 2007, which is a video ad network. And in many of the partnerships that we have, we not only participate as a distributor, we also either provide advertising serving capabilities and technologies, and in some instances, we also are a network sales force, which complements the sales efforts of our partners. So we actually sit on the distribution side of the chain and the advertising side of the chain. And in general, we are less focused in sitting kind of in the middle part of the value chain where we're focused on hosting and ingesting and serving a lot of video ourselves. That's a piece of the business that we're less focused on.
And Fred, there was, of course, a pretty major announcement in the last 24 hours or so.
We've had a lot of news this week, yeah. I'm sure you're talking about the next new networks announcement that we made on Monday.
Neil Sequeira from General Catalyst Partners. We're a venture capital fund with $1.8 billion under management. We have about 60 portfolio companies, and a third of those are in media and new media. Of the 7 boards that I sit on, you've probably heard of most of the companies, but our investment thesis is basically that video will be integrated into every part of media and online, and as a result, we've made investments up and down the stack. We're the largest shareholder in Brightcove, which is a platform that allows people to deliver their own video. Media companies, for the most part, we're the largest shareholder in Maven, which is now part of Yahoo. Largest shareholder of Highwinds, which is an large profitable infrastructure company that provides content delivery and services. ScanScout, which is an ad network that delivers inside of video. Visible Measures, which is a analytics company in the video space. And Deca, which is actually all the way up the stack, creates content, creates video content. So, our general investment thesis in all of our investments is that this is such a critical part going forward for any company online, and our goal as a firm has been to invest aggressively in the space.
Kelly Egan from Swarmcast, and we are an open platform for the delivery of high-quality video online, both for on-demand and for live. The main mantra that we use and we work with is enabling large video distributors to distribute very high-quality video at scale and at profitability. So a large number of our customers use us to deliver high-quality video experiences, meaning it's a HD video quality, it goes fast starts, doesn't buffer, doesn't stall, and therefore what that allows them to do truly is prove this equation, and that is a high-quality video experience equals a satisfied customer, which is a sticky customer, which equals a higher CPM. So that part of it allows them to effectively monetize a video asset that maybe was in a lower quality previously, now is at a better quality, better user experience, attracts more advertisers. On the profitability side, we work with unique content delivery methods that allow for blending of multiple CDNs and multiple serving resources that allow video distributors who are moving millions and millions of video plays a day to truly take advantage of bandwidth markets. So we act in many ways more like a bandwidth hedge fund where we can aggregate and sell and blend in real time. So across many of our different methods, what we are doing is truly enabling large video distributors to reach broadcast level of quality for their video experience for their users, and also monetize it in ways that they can sustain those levels. Some of our biggest customers are MajorLeagueBaseball.com, which in a few weeks we'll be doing the 3rd season of that, where all games will be broadcast on MLB.com live in HD or broadcast quality. Over in Japan, we do all the high-quality video for TV Tokyo and Nippon TV, where they're showing all their shows online in HD quality. There's also business in China for us as well. So globally, as more video comes online and more users come online, and more of those users are used to having flat screens and HD in their living room, as they move to the PC, they want that exact same experience, and that's what we enable.
Great, and Bernie Gershon joined us. Would you like to give a little background? And we asked everyone to also say what their company's doing that is different from the pack, as we have three of the media majors represented here.
Greg. Well, we've worked with a bunch of the companies up here. Walt Disney Company, obviously a content creator, everything from kids content to sports content to network television programming, and delivering that high quality content on broadband, mobile, as well as TV, whether it's a VOD or cable. We've had a bunch of experience. We've delivered tens of millions of programs. We're experimenting with a number of ad models and delivering the video content, certainly trying to deliver a better experience. I'm not sure if it was Kelly or someone else on the panel said that sort of one of the problems people are facing, not only in finding this video, is then being bombarded with really bad commercials that are exactly what they've seen on TV. What we're trying to do is improve that experience both for the consumer as well as for the advertiser, and we've had terrific recall rates in the 80+% range of advertising associated with some of our TV programming that we are delivering online. I'll wait for the questions for more.
Okay, great. So a few different topic areas we wanted to go through, and I thought the first one we want to start with is the viewer, the consumer, since that sort of drives everything else. So 2007 was clearly a huge year of growth in online video viewership. Just a couple of quick stats. I mean, the biggest one that I think of is, according to ComScore, 10 billion videos viewed in the U.S. in December of 2007. 10 billion videos 1 month. So clearly this is something that has pretty significant mass market penetration. That's, of course, no surprise to everyone here. I think another stat that I saw recently is something like 75% of online users watched at least 3 hours of video I think that was also a December or maybe it was a January 2008 score. So clearly there's a lot of consumer adoption of some kind of viewing of online video. You guys no doubt have access to much more fine-grained information than what we see, for example, from ComScore. So what I'd like to ask all of you is, or whoever would like to kind of jump forward with and respond to this, what changed in 2007 other than growth, and what particular consumer behaviors do you see changing? You know, perhaps one example we might talk about is short form versus long form. One of the things that was sort of conventional wisdom at the start of 2007 was mostly people are watching short clips online, although with successful experiments from Netflix and obviously a lot of stuff that the networks are doing, we're finding more and more, at least what I'm seeing is more and more long form content being consumed. What can you tell us about what you see from your audiences about how consumer behavior is changing other than just they're watching more? And just anyone who wants to jump in on that.
I would just start and say quickly the comfort level of the consumer is increasing their comfort in looking at long-form programming. And just sort of publicly available data. There was a New York Times story this week or last week that talked about the fairly large percentage of the Office viewers, not an ABC program, but Office viewers who are watching that program online. Personal experience, I love Lost. It's a fantastic show. I'm generally not home a Thursday night to watch it on TV, so this entire season I've either watched it on my iPod or watched it on my PC, downloaded through iTunes, or watched it through abc.com. Sounds like a bad commercial, but it's in fact the way I consume the program, and it's still a pretty good experience. Is it a better experience on a 60-inch flat panel, high-def TV? Absolutely, but I think that people are getting much more comfortable in consuming long-form theatrical type programming, theatrical entertaining sports type programming, as opposed to just sort of 90 seconds of Brazilian cheerleaders, which is what the sort of typical video content that people were consuming probably 2 to 4 years ago. Not that there's anything wrong.
Some people are still consuming that.
In large quantities.
I think for us, one of
Greg.
the exciting things has been that, well, we were one of the first companies out there to claim that people would watch a long form online, and we saw then in our stats that people are watching long program. I think that's very exciting. I think the second thing that's quite exciting is really the rise of new shows that was not on TV first, but really, Next New Networks have been mentioned a couple of times, and we also have a deal with those guys. And they've really been doing really well by creating online properties that was different length, whatever they felt was suitable for that specific segment. The Onion Network also is doing fantastic stuff. So I think, two trends would be kind of the one about the people don't just want to watch 2 minutes or a guy filmed from a mobile phone, falling down from a chair or some cats. And I think the second thing is that, people who are good storytellers now find a way to go direct to consumers, which we find very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there are two things we've seen. One is the expansion of the demographic that watches online video, and that's a big thing that's changed. And I think a lot of that, to Bernie, to your point, it's the facility with it and the fact that people are comfortable with it, and obviously the expansion of broadband. But it's one of those things where even a year and a half ago, you'd say it's going to be short form, and it's people who are 16 to 24, and it's a young phenomenon. And that's not true anymore. I mean, now we've seen explosive growth in everything from kids videos to stuff on Spike and Comedy Central. Obviously, things like The Daily Show. I mean, it really across the board and across demographics, more and more people are watching video online. The other thing that we're seeing, and it's what you were speaking to, Henrik, the notion of video that's made for the medium. I think 2 years ago we bought GameTrailers.com, which creates videos specifically for online consumption and mobile consumption now that are reviews and the trailers of video games. And that's been one of the fastest growing sites that we have, the fastest growing content that we have online. And a lot of that as well, I think, has to do with the growth of, and I mentioned this before, with the viral distribution and the fact that more and more consumption of that content is happening off the Game Trailer site and the Spike site where a lot of that lives, and it's happening again in gaming blogs and in other people's sites and in other forums via RSS. So kind of having a larger scope of demographics watching video of both stuff that we have already on air and stuff that's made for online in more places is what's just lifting all boats at this point.
Well, also, I think if I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Joe.
I think if you look at it, you pull back from a little bit, and you look at it more from adoption of a technology. You can say that YouTube kind of taught the internet audience, the internet user, how to use video, and of course you teach them with little bits and little things that will draw them in. A cat, someone falling off a bike, and then as a result, the doors kind of opened, and the content really is no longer the actual draw as it is the fact that the user knows that there's a promise of going online and seeing whatever they want now because it's just click and play, and the experience is all right. Where I think where we're moving to now is you have two kind of vectors intersecting. One is this plethora of amazing content online that is not available on their television. It's this world that is open to the consumer. Also, what you have is you have an increasing user experience. So online now, the average internet user, whatever demographic you want to choose to put in there, now looks at the internet as an entertainment box. So they go on and they can watch anything they want at any time with the kind of experience that kind of rivals what they have at home. So really you look at kind of an adoption curve, and then what we look at is the next step of that then is users then will interact with the rich forms of advertising. So we're really at the beginning of an adoption curve that now I think is being fueled by this this fire of really good content.
Fred, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm actually going to talk about it a little bit differently. I think there were two things that I saw last year, one around audiences and consumption and the other around advertising. So if I could just sort of throw this out there. I actually, as I hear most of the comments that are getting kicked around up here, I would agree with all of them, but I would also assert that they apply to one segment in the market. I think you can reasonably stratify the market into three segments. And I think it's fair to say that the bulk of the consumption, the bulk of the assets, the bulk of the activity, probably at least 70% of what's happening doesn't have anything to do with anything that everybody's talking about here. That's user-generated stuff. It's stuff that's happening on social networks. It's very robust. It's growing at its own exponential rate. It's very hard to monetize, but that is a big part of the activity here, and I think that is very reflective of just what's happened with internet traffic and internet user behavior over the last 2 or 3 years, right? So I think it's important to acknowledge that. It's also very challenging to figure out how you make a business around it. But whoever can figure out how to make a business through an ad network or through other means will have a huge amount of very efficient inventory that they will be able to avail themselves of. Okay, so that's one thing that I think is critically important. Neil might want to talk about that a little bit more when he talks about ScanScout. that's still where the bulk of the activity is, and just laws of large numbers, that's where most of the growth is. I think above that, you've got a segment that's probably about 20% of the consumption of the activity, which is either news stuff that's being produced specifically for the medium. Next New Networks is a great example of that. Funny or Die is a great example of that. Internet shorts that you've seen, I'll use some Bebo examples. Cape Modern, is another great example of that. The Berg, which is produced here in New York, which has also had a lot of success. This segment is probably closer to like 20% of the consumption, and I think there is a viable business that can be made here, although it's probably not as valuable as the ultimate 10%, which is what I think most of the people up here have been talking about, which is branded, licensed programming that's professionally produced, carries very, very high CPMs, and is very, very attractive to advertisers. In that segment of the market, there's a real challenge right now, and that is that there is more advertiser demand for that type of programming and inventory associated with that type of programming than there actually appears to be user demand for it. So I think that will change over time. But right now, you've not seen the type of exponential growth rates in this highest part of the value chain that you've seen in some of the other segments. That may change this year. Certainly, we're working very hard to try and drive people up that value chain because that's where we make the most money. It's where our partners make the most money. But that is not without its challenges. So, and then the second piece that I would talk about is advertising. And in the area of advertising, logically, most of the focus has been on that top end of the spectrum, that 10% of the spectrum. If you can move down the spectrum, if you can figure out effective ways to monetize in that 20% or in that 70%, I think there's tremendous upside that's there to take. You won't do that with pre-roll, and I think a lot of the things that you're seeing now with the ticker formats that we launched last year, that Google's launched recently, that MSN and Yahoo are putting into the market, a lot of the things that I think you guys are using those. I don't know if ABC has experimented with those as much, but I think those types of models, in addition to some of the sponsorship stuff that ABC has really pioneered and I think done a brilliant job with, I think if you look at all these different types of creative capabilities that are coming into the market, the network sales models, and the ability to do better targeting, I think that there's tremendous opportunity in that part of the market from an advertising perspective.
Henrik, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, just because I thought you mentioned something that's really interesting and that we really is looking at a lot here in 2008, and that's the integration between the social elements and the video. I think for several reasons. First of all, I think that content exploration could, I guess, roughly be done in three ways. Either you search for it, or you go into a portal, or you get recommended in some way or form. And I think what we in Juice believe very much is that a core part of finding content in the future will be through, the social networks and through social interaction. Partly because that you'll have so much stuff, so you need like some kind of filter. It's an interesting book for reference they call Paradox of Choice, which I recommend people to read. And one of the filters that you can really get is this notion of seeing what your friends are watching. If you want to search, I would never think about searching for the evolution of dance. Now, I got it sent from a friend, and it's a great and very watched clip on YouTube. I think the second thing is that in a notion where you're on your computer, you don't just compete against other video these days. You compete against what people are doing. And a lot of these things have very high emotional equity for people. You can be talking to your girlfriend on Skype. You could be checking what your colleague is doing on LinkedIn. You can do all these different things. So I think what we will have to do as a platform is really create tools for the content owners and the users to find a way of making their content relevant for the users. And that could be different things. It could either be by having triggers saying 86 of your best buddies have watched this show. They left 25 comments. And by the way, it's a show about pandas. Right? I would never watch a show about pandas normally, but if 86 of my friends have watched it, I'll probably go, okay, check it out. Right?
Kind of like that movie about penguins we all went to see.
Exactly. I think the second element, which is really, again, and what I talked to earlier about understanding how you need to make a business that cut across the three segments, users, advertising, and content owners. And that is from the monetization point of view, I understand that social networks have great growth in users, but they all seem to have a little bit of tough time monetizing it, right? I I think what we find on the video side, and I'm sure Greg could talk to that much more, is that we're really finding it increasingly easy to monetize the video assets because advertisers like to be in a video environment where they can communicate their brand very well, and two, create a very deep connection with their users in an interactive form. So I really think that if we'll be able to merge like the social elements of the social networks with the video content in high quality, I think that we'll be going in a very good place in 2008.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, to your point, right, there's, the CPMs are going through the roof on video, and there's a tremendous amount of demand for it, for high quality video. I don't know if 70-20-10 is exactly how I delineate that, but I agree with the concept. I mean, we've focused on some sort of focused UGC type stuff. For example, creating sites for the real world casting, right? Where there used to be a show on MTV, and you'd go and you'd watch the videos. Now you can upload your own videos, and then people can vote on them, and then you can go and watch the ones that are voted. It's a way of creating a sort of controlled environment where there's brands that advertisers trust and sponsorships that we're able to sell across platforms. So we also sell that on mobile, we also sell that on air, and it raises the CPMs of the whole of that whole thing. But to your point, that's still small. I mean, that's nothing compared with the hundreds of millions of videos that are out there of people doing doing whatever, which are increasingly difficult to monetize. And I think one of the things that we're going to see in 2008, we're already seeing it now, is this discovery being an issue for video. I mean, the good news is there's more video online than ever before. The bad news is how do you find it? And I think, Henrik, what you were talking about in terms of social triggers is absolutely relevant, and video search is I think going to be increasingly important. Already is. For us, for a media company, what we've been doing is creating more focused portals for that. So there's like the real world casting I talked about. We also, have a site for fans of The Daily Show and for fans of Colbert, and there's a South Park one that is coming. And so people who are fans of a show can go there, and then there's communities, and they can share, and there are favorites, and they can cut and clip and edit and mash up and do all of that. That's one way in which we're handling it. But again, I think discovery in general is going to be a big issue this year.
I'd like to just follow up on one thing you said, Fred. You mentioned that there were kind of three categories, and then I think I heard about two: the user-generated and the high-end production. Is the third a kind of an independent content market that's starting to evolve that didn't really previously have distribution? The Lisa Novas of the world, the Rocket Booms, the Jib Jabs, that kind of world.
Those guys are certainly players in that market, but I think. Independent, if you wanted to use sort of a traditional media way of clustering, is probably a fine way to describe it. I mean, there are established media companies that are playing in that space as well, but there are established media companies who play in the independent film market too.
I guess I just find sometimes we take user-generated content as one monolithic thing, and really I think there's someone's kid doing something, that kind of stuff. But then there's this other very interesting area that the infrastructure isn't necessarily in place to monetize well today, but is probably more monetizable, more interesting to advertisers to be on, the Lisa Nova stuff versus the true, non-professional user-generated content.
Yeah, but I mean, if you go back to like the Coke and Mentos thing, that was sponsorable, right?
Yeah.
And that was not sponsorable because it was done by a production company. So there is a bottoms-up element here that I think you needs to stay sort of in the construct of how you think about
right, but
that
the videos that I put on YouTube of my baby throwing up, probably not sponsorable.
Well,
Gerber.
It is a very cute baby.
I don't know, maybe. But yeah, no, it's
Bounty paper towels.
Greg is now officially one of the guys that on his Facebook profile put his kid on there as well.
yes, that's right.
good.
Creepy guys with their children on Facebook pictures. Yeah.
Well, that actually you might be able to sell.
Yeah. I do think that there's we've been talking about this thing we call the fat belly, right? Like of the mid-till. And I think, at Juice, we definitely believe that that's going to be an enormous market where you have quality storytellers that, now can go direct to market. And I think with a platform like ours, we'll be able to make serious money on it. I think we definitely think that will be a big segment of what online viewing will be.
Well, I'd like to ask a little more about the social component as it relates to the premier or professional content. And let me ask you a question this way. It seems to me that there's a fundamental dilemma, or maybe you guys won't agree, between the desire to surround your content with social components and therefore be able to both monetize the extra views associated with those and also make your content more discoverable, and the kind of broad syndication models that not necessarily, say, a Disney, but a lot of others are taking, where your content goes out and almost loses its wrapper and it sits in someone else's environment, and so it's much more difficult for you to create community around something when all you can really do is syndicate the video asset themselves. Is that a dilemma that you guys are struggling with? And if so, what are your thoughts about it, and how do you see resolving it?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that we thought about a lot earlier was exactly that point. Where you take a video clip of a top show, and you want the community. We want the community around that to be on the page with the rest of the videos, and in an area that of course we sell ads against, and what have you. You take that and you put that into Facebook. A community builds around it, and you don't have a piece of that. Now, what's interesting is that Facebook, as an interesting example, as they opened up their platform and allowed you to create fan groups and what have you. We were still able to do things like make money off that on advertising and maintain some control. We're seeing that now with Open Social. I think that the social networks where frankly we know people are. We know they're on MySpace. We know they're on Bebo. We know they're there. We want them to create communities around our content. But to your point, if they're doing that completely outside of the rest of what we have, we don't have the opportunity to monetize that, and in fact, it can take away from where we are monetizing it. But I think that the good news on that front is that a lot of those networks, in fact, I think all of them, have been working ever closer with media companies to allow us to create environments and create ways of making money off of those communities and off of those conversations and discussions.
And just to add to that, we were part of the Beacon program that Facebook did, and we really think it's a really good service to give to social networks that you can see what your friends are watching. So if you go on Juice now and you press play, it'll beacon back to your buddies, what shows you're watching, and then that again will be able to create much more kind of a social space around that, and then hopefully leads to more viewing. So I think we can definitely use the social networks to give them a service, because so they have a place where users kind of maintain their life, but still when it comes to video, then go back to sites like AOL, ourselves, or Disney, for example.
It seems like it's more of an opportunity than anything else, because for the first time you have the ability to break out of the moronic Nielsen ratings and understanding of your video, which is just ludicrous that so many people in this room pay attention to those types of numbers.
Look at the audience for the Nielsen people to get up and leave.
So you can actually now, using a lot of companies, including Visible Measures, but others, figure out where your video is going, how it's doing, how you can monetize it, and actually get detailed information back from the consumers as to what they're watching and how to monetize it. And that's an exceptional value to everybody sitting at this table, because they've never been able to do it before. They've been constrained by cable systems, they've been constrained by the traditional distribution partners, and then constrained by a few households that have determined what does well and what doesn't do well. And it seems like at the current moment in time, if these types of technologies are embraced, it's a huge opportunity for content owners to both figure out what consumers want more accurately, monetize it to a greater extent, and grow their business without having the constraints that have been in the traditional media world.
Let me add to that as well. I mean, kind of bridging off of that, when you look at video delivery methods and how they are evolving, the reporting and the analytics, like Visual Measures and even an extension of that, what you're able to do is look at things like deep user experience reporting, like when they went full screen, when they buffered, when they stalled. If they didn't go full screen, at what point in the video did they stop, or did they drop out, or more importantly, are they replaying certain parts of the video over and over again? So those are things that we've never had before, as far as looking at how can I use this information and how can I use it in a way to monetize it. So I mean, the full screen aspect of it, when they go full screen, when they don't, when they stop, when they rewind, those are things that are very rich reporting that advertisers will want to take a look at as well.
Thanks. So I want to turn the topic now even more to focus on money. And so we've had some announcements in the last couple of weeks in particular about how different of the media companies are, the amount of revenue they're claiming from the digital space. We heard this morning from Les Moonves, $200 million is CBS. He put it, I think, online revenue was the term he used. Disney announced recently $1 billion. Was that for 2007? $1 billion in online revenue? Or digital revenue, I should say?
The goal for 2008.
Was that the goal or the forecast? Was it the forecast or the report?
Whatever you say.
Viacom has said
That's Bernie's number for 2008, I think.
That's your deliverable.
And I know Viacom, of course, had announced some time ago, probably a year ago, a $500 million goal, and recently announced that you'd surpassed it and hit $550 million. Again, I think that was for 2007, if I'm right. So
That's right.
and that, again, I think is the digital goal. So I guess a couple questions about that. And Bernie, if you don't mind, you've been uncharacteristically quiet. I'd love to hear your perspective on how that, first of all, when we say a digital number, what do we mean by digital? And it may vary by different companies. And then secondly, this panel's focused on video. How much of our revenue today is video versus obviously all the other things that one might count as digital, anything from virtual worlds to regular text, news sites to other things.
Again, I'm not sort of an expert in all the pieces in our company of where we're generating revenue. Obviously, it ranges from Club Penguin, where people pay to have their penguin and their family, and I think that's $9.95 a month or something in that ballpark, and there certainly are hundreds of thousands of people, so that's a form of digital revenue. There's sort of what now we call the old style banners and buttons and advertising across ESPN.com and ABC News and Disney Channel, et cetera. There's downloads through iTunes and other places where people are paying $1.99 for an episode of Hannah Montana or Pirates of the Caribbean or Lost or Desperate Housewives. And then there's the advertising associated with our video. Again, the primary examples that people are familiar with are Lost and Desperate Housewives on ABC.com, and there actually are some distribution partners. AOL is a distribution partner. Our concept is a little bit different in the sense that we insist that the partner uses our wrapper so that we, in a sense, control the experience with the partner. And then there are sort of a bunch of other ways that you can generate some revenue, a little bit of e-commerce. But I would say the advertising piece, particularly the high-quality advertiser associated with high-quality content, is definitely growing. And I think Fred said that they're sold out in that category, and there's a high demand for that category, in part because media buyers understand that probably better than UGC and some of the other pieces, and they're comfortable with it. And they're also doing a pretty good job, advertisers are doing a pretty good job of creating engaging advertising associated with the content. So on the ABC.com player, if someone pauses the program, a full-screen ad occupies the screen. So theoretically, the person is walking away to go to the refrigerator or something. There's still a full-screen ad there that they then get rid of that ad and go back to the program. So a lot of it today is experimentation in the advertising space, and hopefully we're getting away from a situation where our ad salespeople are just selling skyscrapers on a fairly static page. Hopefully I kind of answered your question.
Well, except for the part about how much, anything you can share about how much, of the revenue.
Yeah, I can give you
video.
I can give you a percentage breakdown exactly where
All right,
all
fair
it
enough.
comes from.
Yeah, my answer is the same. A little bit of ringtones, a dash of e-commerce,
All the
banners,
ringtones.
buttons. No, it's a wide mix of revenue, and I think a lot of it is still. It's funny. It's traditional online ad sales, right? A lot of it is still we have tremendous amount of traffic, and we sell sponsorships and banners and buttons and text ads. We've built up a larger remnant business. We have a big deal with Microsoft, and all of that is continuing to grow. I think some of the faster growing segments, what we're talking about right here in terms of video, mobile is still a very fast growing segment for us, and there's a lot of new stuff that is coming up fast. But when people talk about digital, a big chunk of that is online advertising.
We focus on advertising first and foremost. That's who we are as a company, and so I'll talk a little bit about the different things we're doing with advertising specifically. So, in our owned and operated business, which is starting with our player, the videos that we license, host, ingest, deliver in our player, sell the advertising for primarily. We sell pre-roll. We've got ticker formats. We do in-stream sponsored links. We're looking at all kinds of targeting capabilities and those things. In addition to that, on our web pages, we do quite a bit of stuff with banners and sponsorships and those types of things. We've started to bring targeting capabilities like Dakotas to bear on what we do with our video search results pages and those types of things. We've seen considerable lift in our CPMs based on the targeting technologies. In some instances, we're increasing CPMs by 3x, 4x, 5x which is big because we're talking about a lot of page views. More broadly, AOL's focus and Platform A's focus in particular is about building a network business. I talked a lot about how the usage gets spread across this broad spectrum. The usage and consumption of AOL's owned and operated video tends to have the same complexion as ABC's or MTV's, in as much as we really sit pretty squarely in that top 10% of the value chain for most of what we have on an operated basis. But on a broader basis, from a network standpoint, we are working very closely with a whole lot of people sort of in that middle 20% of the spectrum, and then Ad.com has as much inventory on the social networks as you could imagine. So our focus is really on trying to figure out how we can maximize the value not only across what we do ourselves, but across our partners, both the direct distribution partners we have, as well as across straight sales partners across the web. We believe that targeting capabilities will be an important part of that. We also are paying close attention to a lot of the next generation video ad creative formats, as well as a lot of the next generation video ad targeting capabilities. One of whom is a company that Neil's invested in, and trying to figure out how that helps us make money, 3, 4, 5 years from now.
To that point, just that particular company, what's most exciting for us, and hopefully partnering with people like AOL and large media companies, from the third quarter, so I'll just use data, from the third quarter last year, the average buy from Madison Avenue for this particular company went from $50,000 to $100,000 range to $500,000 to $1 million. And to me, that is an important leap forward for the industry, an important leap forward for monetization. And it's really driven by two factors. One is there's more of an understanding of how performance-based, whether it be CTR, CPC, or even CPM on a branding basis, can be impactful to advertisers. And the second is just a comfort factor. So they understand performance, and now there's more comfort in actually advertising online. And to see ad buys go up 500% over 2 quarters, I think is a very good sign. It's early, still very, very early. It's going to be years, as Fred said before, I think this starts to catch up to some of the costs involved in delivering video. But it is definitely, the trajectory from our perspective and the companies that we invest in has been outstanding.
Yeah, let me just speak to the other side of that. So the top line, we just talked about each one of these stats on the top line revenue for ads and ad buys and advertising revenue increasing. What rarely is talked about is the actual profitability model and what you just mentioned, the real cost to delivering video. Unlike in broadcasting, where an additional viewer does not equal an additional cost, there is a real cost for adding another viewer to a video, and especially when you are delivering high quality like ABC and all the networks are delivering, and also when you're even going into like the fat belly mid tail where one video may be extremely popular, but that site is crippled by the bandwidth cost and delivery cost. So in there, you've got an entire value chain where you've got, starting with bandwidth and serving, you've got content management services, publishing services, then ad monetization on there. So inside of that CPM, when you really break down the costs, a lot of it is not profitable. And one of the things that will happen inside of what we think the next few years is just first a number of consolidation, but also just a maturity of the market where there's going to be a plateau that will be reached that will be equaling what's the quality of the video in relation to when it's served, in relation to what is that CPM. So looking at yield management and looking at quality equals, where if it's really high quality, but I'm not really selling my ads through, then maybe I don't want to deliver a really high quality stream to that because I can't sell that show. So we're really looking at now, I think, at the beginning of a brand new facet of the industry that really hasn't arisen yet, and that is delivery costs tied to quality, then tied directly to the ad sell-through.
Henrik, you want to make a quick comment about that?
Just picking up something that, obviously Williams Homecast very much agree on, and that is that the whole discussion about the cost of delivery is often very forgotten, right? Because it's, the traditionally the people that's been streaming these things are companies with very deep pockets. And I think, especially in the mid-tail, and as these companies get more and more mature and, investors and owners of companies are starting to ask for real revenue, I think what we will see is that the users' demand for good quality video will increase with the bandwidth that they'll have to their homes, and the cost for people who don't apply advanced technologies to distribute this will be exponentially going up. And, maybe you could talk to your experience in Japan, but that's one of the things that they've seen over there, where you have 10 megs or 100 megabit of wire going to people's house, and it just becomes really difficult to get the CPMs aligned with the cost of distribution.
Yeah, actually, let me mention that. So, I mean, most like anything in technology, Japan is this great little petri dish of what can be and what will be coming down the road. And it's a little bit different because they have fiber there, and a lot of times you plug your machine in and it just melts the box because you just can't play back the video that's coming down that fiber. Two things there. So they kind of skipped the whole UGC phenomenon. They went right to professional content. So there is a number of the most popular sites there are equivalent to, let's say, Hulu. And they are monetizing that in a number of different ways, the way they know how. Now, the industry is set up a little bit differently there, where many of the most popular video sites are owned by carriers, and it's kind of a little more verticalized than it is here. But still, what we're seeing there, I think, is a great indication of what we'll begin to see over here and also in Europe, and that is really high-quality video in production value as well as actual delivery is really saved only for what you might call the equivalent of a Hulu here, where a company that has a crack sales team that can get the best ads and can walk up and down Madison Avenue and get the big checks, that will only align with companies that are distribution for high-quality shows in high-quality delivery. So in Japan, there really is no middle ground. It's basically, they've skipped this whole UGC thing and gone right to high quality.
And that's, of course, where companies like ours have the advantage that, we have about 60 to 70% effectiveness of our peer-to-peer system. So, we'll be able to take the cost that we're saving and really hand them back to the content owners so they can make a proper business.
Okay, well, I think we have time for one more kind of juicy topic before we turn it over to audience questions. And I want to talk a little bit about the living room. So a lot of what we've talked about is kind of thinking, largely the PC mindset, although obviously a lot of these issues bleed over. But it seems that there's a battle started for the living room. What you experienced, Bernie, you alluded to the plasma screen, what you experienced when you plop down on the sofa and pick up your remote. And clearly that is space which has been traditionally owned by the MSO. If you add MSO plus satellite together, almost total ownership. But clearly there's a number of players that are trying to move into that space. One being, of course, IPTV. But even more interestingly to me are some of these over-the-top options, whether it's through TiVo or whether it's through Apple TV, or more successfully so far through the game consoles, which want to connect themselves to your broadband connection and actually become your on-demand delivery platform as an alternative to your video on demand that's been provided by your MSO. So I'm curious what you guys think about that battle, and particularly, the MSOs clearly are the incumbent. If you were advising somebody who's trying to encroach in those areas, what do you think they could be doing to be most successful in their efforts to create a new way that we distribute video to the living room? Assuming, then let me add to that discussion a kind of an assumption of reasonable access to bandwidth, not without getting into a net neutrality issue, at least assume a reasonable playing ground.
Let me, if you don't mind, I'll take this one first. The boxes you're referring to, kind of these over-the-tops, these are just stepping stones where everything will go Cat5 wireless right in the back of the flat screen, and it's going to happen in the next 12 to 18 months. So the box issue, that part of it is kind of an irrelevant issue of going to buy a separate box, if it's Voodoo or whatever it is.
Because you think these capabilities are simply built into the
it's built into built in.
I don't know if it's 18 months. I mean, I would tend to agree with you. But, one of the things, the game systems have tremendous footprints already. And I agree, the Voodoos of the world have a tough time. But, Apple's got a big fan base with the Apple TV.
Right.
I have an Apple TV, and I got rid of my Netflix. I mean, it's
That's great.
It's actually a pretty amazing system. Although I think you're right. I mean, especially back to CES, you saw all of them, right? You saw all of the flat screen TVs that had the wireless right in the back of them. But you still have to, Sony's got their system on their TV, and Hitachi is their system, and Samsung's trying to do something else, and maybe they don't exactly work with the Xbox, and it's one issue that I think might extend that time frame. But I cut you
No,
off.
so I mean, you look at it also in the idea. It's very similar to the Portal strategy back kind of in Internet Round 1. So you've got Lycos and Excite and all these guys who are lining to be the front end when you open up your television box. And the same thing's happening on the CE side right now, if it's Sony or if exactly what you're saying, it's the Bivel box or whatever it is. But what these CE manufacturers do not have, and that's content smarts. They don't have it. So before I joined Swarmcast, I was running entertainment at Best Buy, and a large part of what we saw was every quarter these CE guys would come in and say, we've got this brand new television or this box, and we've got all this content. It's going to happen in 12 months. And you guys should be worried because your whole DVD business will go away. I go, great, thanks. We'll wait till it comes in, and we'll put it on the shelf. Those things never came. But what we're seeing now is those things are coming down, but what they do not have are content relationships. And this is really where the large networks, people like Juice, where the value is there for really, really potent marriages.
So I think the question was, if you were asked to give advice, what advice would you give? And I would throw something out there that will be provocative if you're an MSO. So I'll acknowledge that up front. I actually think the most disruptive thing that you could do if you were an MSO would be to move beyond OCAP and to create a layer on your boxes that you could open up to developers, and to give them the ability to come in and create applications so that, Henrik could create a Juiced application, push it on these boxes, and get people to engage with that directly without having to go through multiple layers of essentially resistance, because all of the orientation that, understandably so, that you see in that business is around incumbents who are, in effect, sanctioned monopolies. So, provocatively, I would suggest that if I were asked for advice, and I haven't been, that would be something that bears a lot of pretty serious consideration. Is that the idea that if you open this up, there will be a greater creation of value for users. And interestingly, as you see companies like Verizon and AT&T move into this space and compete, head to head with people like Comcast or Time Warner Cable, which happens to be part of the company that I'm part of, as well as with the satellite companies, I think you will see perhaps a greater likelihood that somebody might do this as a way of disrupting.
So Neil, you're in the business of making bets, right? Do you believe in betting against the MSOs, and are you doing that?
So I'm a little biased. I spent years with Fred at AOL, and then I was at Time Warner before joining as a partner at GC 4 years ago. So MSOs, I wouldn't bet against the MSOs simply because they have the IP pipe to your home. Right. There's some competition now with Verizon, which I think is exciting, and they actually have fiber and real speed to the home, which I think will definitely head the industry in the right direction. So but at the end of the day, they still control the pipe to the home for your IP. So very difficult to bet against MSOs. But an open standards, which the internet effectively is exciting for every content owner. I just keep coming back to it. The only thing I would add is for everyone in this room to encourage companies like Akamai from not killing innovation for the delivery of content, right? They're going to put Limelight out of business. They're going to put infrastructure guys out of business. We're invested in a company called Highwinds, but there's Panther Express. There's a bunch of young companies. There's guys like Swarmcast who can deliver your content to the consumer just as long as we don't kill innovation in the marketplace going forward.
Yeah, I would agree with not betting against the MSOs. I mean, and they're also the giants are starting to wake, right? I mean, you've got Slingcast, which is now part of Echo. I mean, Comcast's Fancast gets more and more built out and advanced every day, and they've got their own sort of Hulu connection there. And of course, they are the incumbent pipe into all of our homes, and it's really tough. But I do think the IPTV angle is an interesting one, because we've seen AT&T and Verizon come out with their IPTV products, and frankly, they haven't been open platforms, and they haven't been these sort of they haven't been what they could be in terms of functionality, right? I mean, they look like cable, but they will be. You know, I mean, it's beginning to happen now. So you've got those guys who are trying to encroach, directly to the home. You've got the MSOs who are building up their own, and then everything that we've been talking about as well, in terms of every other box, and the giant and growing installed base of PlayStations and Xboxes and Wiis. And Apple fanboys who will hook up anything to their TV that Steve Jobs tells them to hook up. It's going to be a really, really interesting battle, and I do think it's a coming war for the living room. Yeah.
Great. Well, let's open it up to questions from the audience. I assume we have somebody with a microphone or something in the room. Is that true? Not true. Okay, so I guess it's shout. Yeah. I'm just going to repeat that.
Everyone?
He wants to hear from Fred. The question was about the soundness of the Bebo application acquisition and what challenges AOL faces.
I'm not going to answer that question. I think it makes sense. That's my answer.
Does anyone have a contradictory view? Okay. Is there another question? Yeah.
How much premium content online do you think will be consumed through retail as opposed to an ad-supported model?
We always in Juiced felt that the right model was to offer content free of an advertising model. I'm sure different types of content will kind of cater more for different types of business model. I think for the majority of the mainstream premium content, I think it'll be an advertising-based model. But we're not averse for the idea of having some special events, sports events, boxing matches. Maybe, and if some markets might be more better for a pay-per-view model, that's what
you're describing sounds a little bit like the traditional cable model today. Do you think the ratios will be similar?
I think what you see in some countries, for example, the UK, where they launched Freeview, which for people who don't know is a digital terrestrial system, where you buy a box and you connect it to your antenna, and then suddenly you get like 100 free channels, have shown that if you give that to people, they'll be able to make a very successful business and quite rapidly. So, at the same time, Sky in the UK and DirecTV and Comcast here have very good businesses too. So I don't really think it necessarily is like an either or.
Others?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the content. So, we've had a lot of experience in this area where sports kicked off the whole pay-per-view model, where for the past 3 years, MLB was a subscription model. You've got things like the World Wrestling Entertainment is pay-per-view, UFC's pay-per-view. So you look at sports, and people it's a direct extension of what came off of cable. So that is and will always be, I think, a pay-per-view model. Now, what we also are moving into now is experimenting with live concerts and live events, where a lot of that is driven by the artist, and we work very closely with the management to do these events. And it's going to happen quite soon, and when it does, the floodgates will open. Instead of having it be an ad-sponsored event, like, for example, Linkin Park did a stream, like a concert stream of Project Revolution on MySpace last summer, actually, sponsored by State Farm. And a lot of that now is those models are proving out that, yeah, you can get a sponsor, but actually the quality of the experience and the stream is good enough that the artists think they can charge. So I'll give you an example. A few months ago, before the California primary, the Grateful Dead had a reunion, and it was great. We streamed it to like 80,000 people over 3 hours, and we sat back at the end of it afterwards, and it was totally free online. But we sat back with the guys afterwards, and the Dead said, we could have charged for this, and we probably could have charged $30. And when you do the numbers, 80,000 people at $30, I mean, that's like a month of touring for a band like that. So I think you'll see that, but it really comes down to the specific content and the quality, because a lot of people will not charge unless the quality is good. So sports and concerts are things where you find it.
I love how it's the Grateful Dead driving you to charge for that.
Yeah, I know.
It's always been about the money.
They've always been about the cash, but the artists are doing this. You'll see a lot more of it.
Okay, let's take a few more. Yes, sir.
You pay with cotton?
Yeah, right. They pay me with a big bag of weed.
From our experience, women consume. Right now, for most of the video that we've seen online, it just depends on the content, right? So what's interesting, if you look at a parallel in the casual game space. Women drive that business. Women are the drivers of the casual game business, and that is a hell of a business. And it's billions of dollars in revenue. And the female demographic, especially the people who are playing casual games, for instance, is incredibly valuable to the Procter and Gamble's of the world, et cetera. So I think today, from the platforms we own that deliver video content, it's split down the middle unless there's a gender-specific content. But I have to believe that over time, women will play a bigger and greater role in the monetization because that demo is so valuable to advertisers.
We think it's pretty even too. I mean, we see it's funny when we look at either via surveys or demographic information we have both on our online and mobile video. It's actually surprisingly even down the middle in terms of, I mean, these shows like, The Hills and Laguna, who have huge teen girl audiences, for example, also are, hugely watched online.
I do think all the cat videos, though, skew heavily to women. Right.
And there's also the kids category. Obviously, kids are going to break down into male and female kids, but sort of the category is interesting for advertisers. There are sort of rules around marketing to kids, but certainly we've seen, particularly in mobile, the pass-back effect of you can watch Hannah Montana or High School Musical or Sweet Life of Zack and Cody or a bunch of Greg's other favorite programs on
SpongeBob, Dora.
No, those are not
Go
the
Diego.
on a mobile phone, and mom will hand the phone back to the kid in the back seat and say, "Watch this for half an hour." And we see the viewing times are not necessarily that high, but certainly sort of above typical mobile viewing times of kids watching this programming to kill time.
And for infants with a phone, we also measure chewing time.
and the number of times they throw up per show.
Okay, next question.
Sorry.
What role, you were just talking about mobile video, what's the role of carriers in mobile video, and what are the biggest hurdles?
The carriers deliver the mobile video to the consumer.
How much time you
and
got?
the carriers
Pretty big role.
I think it's
collect
sort
the
of
money from the consumer.
a walled garden versus.
Exactly. How are they being open and allowing platform for
They're
mobile?
being wide open, right?
And what are the biggest hurdles in terms of mobile video taking off?
So the question was biggest hurdles in terms of mobile video taking off.
Again, you have one of the biggest hurdles is some of the stuff we talked about before. Finding the video is even more difficult on a screen this big than it is on a PC screen. The carriers certainly control the experience and are probably for the foreseeable future going to control that experience until sort of, more people can access the web directly from their phone. Sort of the iPhone is a good example of a really good web interface, but for the most part, people are not really accessing the web from their phones. And as far as, what was the rest of your question? The quality of the video or the delivery or why hasn't it taken off?
Yeah.
All those? I think it hasn't taken off because I don't think people are, AOL used to use the term years ago, habituate the user, which I kind of loved. But people have not really been habituated to access video content on mobile devices. And probably in the US today, it depends on what number you believe, there are anywhere between 5 and 7 million subscribers to video content on mobile, which out of the universe of mobile phones is pretty tiny.
Yes, it's small out of the universe of mobile phones. 3 years ago, it was nothing. I mean, it's grown. Yeah. It's actually, the good news is it's grown exponentially, but from a tiny number to a, somewhat bigger number. Carriers are the folks who deliver mobile video to the handsets, and I've got to say, most of our mobile video business is through operators. I mean, we work with Verizon and with Sprint, with AT&T, and again, as Bernie was saying, they deliver it, they get paid, we get our money in it, and
they also promote it, so they'll tell you they'll in fact. If they promote something on whatever the top deck page is for video, it will get exponentially.
They promote it and they make
so it's changing. So the largest mobile social network is a company called MocoSpace. It's WAP based. It is not through an operator. It is not through a deck. People access Moco. It's got 3 million users, 1.5 billion page views a month.
But no video.
It is.
But not video.
So video is on the site.
That's the hard.
And the thing that will keep it is data rate charges. So if the carriers at some point, which will happen, every walled garden comes down. It will happen. They will have a $99 all the data you can take on your phone rate. It will come. It's just going to take a couple of years. When that happens, WAP-based mobile video will be a reality.
Right,
it's just they have to get to that point where they're comfortable
That's right,
doing
because it already exists. I mean, on my Voyager Verizon phone, I can go to YouTube right on the HTML browser and watch videos, and I do. And it's something that exists, but it's tough to do. It's hidden, and to your point, it's expensive unless you have an all-you-can-eat dinner charge that allows for that.
You know, one comment I want to make about that, which is, and you mentioned about habituating the user. I mean, mobile video is huge today. It's huge if we define it a little differently. I mean, I've spent a lot of time on airplanes, and as I'm walking back from the bathroom and passing all those seats, I see nothing but screens. And I don't mean the screens that hang down from the ceiling. I mean people's portable DVD players, and I mean their laptops, and I mean their iPods and other devices. And obviously that's not really what we mean, and I don't think that was the context of your question. But from a habituation perspective, I think we've now all come to expect, and increasingly expect, the idea that our media is available to us when we're on the go, when we travel, even though today the main way of doing that may not be a wireless method. And so I think that's an important kind of consumer change, that as the methods to get the video through wireless devices, that's only one step more convenient than carrying 7 DVDs in your bag. And I almost liken it, when I think about it on airplanes too, the days when I remember being as a kid getting on an airplane and being excited that you could plug the headphones in and like they'd have all this music you could listen to. They actually still have that, but I don't really know why, because just about everybody comes with their own music, and increasingly, you know, I wonder the same thing about airplane video, and the point being we're carrying our video around with us, and I think that habituation is an important step toward what ultimately is, you know, a wireless video delivery model.
I prefer the airline headset.
Do you like it when they were tubes?
When they were
Remember
tubes, it was
Yeah.
great. They were tubes. It was wonderful.
It's the internet.
Yeah, it's come a long way since the old days of the Ankomi and Digital Island and worrying about DRM. And I know ABC uses wrappers, but I mean, isn't still the security of the copyright of the quality content a real issue? And how do you see protecting that going forward?
Well,
I would just say piracy obviously is a real issue for anyone who creates content. And I think one of the reasons why we're trying to create economic models that make sense, meaning deliver somebody a free, high-quality, high-def, full-length episode of Lost with a limited number of commercials, you know, we believe in that situation, free is kind of going to be easier. Free and high quality is going to be easier for someone to understand than, okay, let me go to some other site and download a really crappy copy of that content and violate the copyright. I mean,
yeah, I think in Juiced we have the feeling we have DRM on all the content we put on our platform. It's all geo-filtered. So, and we know that for people who take their content seriously and want to make a business out of this, it matters. I think what we do see is that, and especially as you move into international, and a lot of companies here are primarily in the domestic market, but you know, as you move more towards Asia, I think, you know, a lot of content companies are getting word that they'll, you know, put their stuff out in China, and suddenly they'll see it down on the street. So you know, we have, touch wood, never been a compromise in our security. We have our own DRM, and I think that's really important.
You know, in music, of course, we've seen a move away from DRM. Of course, now we're talking about paid content there. Does anyone on the panel think that for paid content, that there might be a similar move in video away from DRM that we've seen in the music world?
Well, I think I grew up in online music before I did video. I was in online music for years. I think that what you're seeing in the online music business is not necessarily predictive of what will happen in video. What didn't happen in the online music business was that people didn't go to solve for user behavior, user needs, and business models first. They actually tried to solve for security first, and that didn't work. So when you see the music business talk about moving away from DRM, the good news there is the acknowledgement of the fact that they need to do things that work better for consumers. The bad news there is that you have to ask yourself how impactful they're going to be, just given the state of that market. And for better or worse, things do appear, like the numbers do appear to actually be starting to go in a better direction for the labels than they have, you know, over the last couple of years. So I think that's really the difference in online video. Generally, the content owners have been more aggressive, more willing to make investments, and more willing to take some chances, and also much more willing to listen to consumers than we saw really in the first generation with digital media, which wasn't music.
I think that's an excellent point. I mean, I think we learned a lot from looking at that market, and to what Bernie was saying earlier, the notion of moving as fast as we can to create legal alternatives, and you know, there is still that window where, you know, frankly, downloading a movie from the internet is still difficult. It still takes a lot of time. BitTorrent is not something that the sort of common general population uses commonly. That's not to say it won't get to where Napster was very quickly. But I think that we're learning to focus on the business models and listen to the consumer and try to stay ahead of that.
Yeah, and I want to add one thing. I don't want to pick on the music business. I love the music business. I grew up in the music business. The music business was first. The fact that mistakes were made is inevitable. It's what happens when you're first. The fact that in the video business we've had the benefit of learning from those mistakes has hopefully helped us. I think it has.
All right, we've got time for one more question. You've been waiting, yeah?
I have a question in regards to download versus streaming, especially when we talk about the living room experience. For example, I have an Apple TV, and until YouTube partnered with Apple TV, I would never want to stream video, I would just download it. But now that there's a proliferation of platforms that are all streaming and no downloads, how will we see that content come to the living room?
Fred, do you want to talk about that in the context of what you were doing with Into TV and that compared to some of your streaming activities?
Yeah, I mean, I think streaming's going to get better. I actually would also highlight that most of the usage today happens on the PC. That is the core use case. And on the PC, people care a whole lot more about access and load time than they care about technical quality. I think, Kelly can talk about what Swarmcast is doing technically to help make the real-time delivery of high-quality programming something that's much more feasible from a technical perspective. I think you'll see tremendous progress that'll happen in that area. You've got Adobe rolling H.264 support into Flash. You've got Microsoft doing a lot of interesting things with quality around Silverlight. You've got companies like Swarmcast and others who are focused on quality. You've got companies like Juiced who, while from a technical perspective, it's not like truly streaming, it feels like streaming to an end user. So, I think there's a lot of technical work that will address the qualitative aspects of what the problem you're defining. But I would also make the point that the problem that you're defining is not the primary problem that users have.
Yeah, kind of to go back to what you first said, when you put this into a living room experience, the stakes rise tremendously. And to date, the safest way to deliver a really good quality experience is to download. That's what it was easiest first, and the packets get there and they're on the box, and you bring them up, and there is no risk. Well, there's always risk, but the risk is limited that there's going to be glitches. What we see now, though, is a move towards this, whatever I want, this cornucopia of content that's available, and that truly is only available through an on-demand type stream. And this is where we work really diligently to perfect that. More importantly, though, it's where the content world is moving. So when you download on a box, you're limited by memory, but you get a good quality experience. So what we are doing, as well as other companies, is working really with the content distributors to make that streaming experience to the box into the flat screen, which users expect to have the exact same experience if it comes from their broadcast. We're there. There is still a lot of improvement, but more importantly, it's really user experience that is driving everything. So to kind of summarize what you were saying, I mean, download versus streaming, it really is, it's kind of a combination of two things. It was really, where it came first in the adoption curve, but when someone goes to Best Buy or Walmart and buys a couple $1,000 television that has the ability to bring movies or content over IP, they're demanding that it looks the same as if they plug their coax in.
Great.
So that's
Kelly,
really
we're going to give you the last word on that. Thank you for your questions. Please thank our panel.
Good to see you. Always a pleasure. Are you down just for the day?
Yeah, just